So I wanted to do some more gardening videos from my yard, so I'm going to show you what my yard looks like in the middle of summer. I have one on there that's from spring, but yeah, as you can see, I am covered up in grass clippings from weed eating and lawn mowing. And my nephew, of course, Nick, helped me, and he's been working on his car. But anyway, let me show you some of my plants.
Aftermath of the car project.
The aftermath of the car project. Crap everywhere, but we're cleaning it up. All right, these are some of my roses. If you look out there, I actually have 72 rose bushes in the yard, and I've done roses from clippings, and I've also grown other plants from clippings. I'm starting to start some hydrangeas right now, and I accidentally ran over a few in the woods, so I'm going to do those from starts as well. But check it out here. These roses are about 6 feet tall and 8 feet to 10 feet wide. They're my favorites. These are like the knockout rose variety. And then back here I have a kind of pinkish red one. And then these are yellows. So if you want a rose that's gonna be like really super tough, then you want to get a knockout variety rose. And then this one right here is a climber. And I planted that when I first moved into the yard, back when Dad was alive, when I first moved here. But I've moved it twice, so if I had known that it was going to look like this, I would have bought more of them, and I've actually started other starts from this rose as well, and they're around the yard. But well, let's check it out real quick. Okay, it's a 3/4 acre yard. Lots of big trees. There's shade and sun, and what I have is over here, I'm growing shade stuff. These are Lornicopia or monkey grass. They bloom out in the summertime in a purple. And then right here I have like daylilies. They're orange in with the roses. And then I have a sedum that blooms in the fall. You know, my tiki torches. Weird painting on the side of my sheds. But if you look out at the yard, it's a really huge yard. And then I created a gnome garden, is what I call it, in the back where all the woods are. I like cut paths through there, and I'll show that to you in a second too. Now I live in Georgia, so what I'm doing is all of these plants out here do not have to be maintained. It's very hot, very humid here. It will get dry. You know, I'll put things into pots occasionally, like the sedum, you know, that I'll water. But essentially, I do not want to be watering things all the time or having to take care of them, and they grow like weeds. So, you know, you want stuff that's going to grow well. So all of the things I have in my yard are for this climate, and they will actually continue to bloom well into the fall because it's warm here, and they'll survive the winter very nicely, and they're drought tolerant. I've had them for many years. They'll survive all that stuff. This is verbena, by the way. I said that it was said that it was a succulent instead of a verbena, and it's actually a verbena. And then this is my pumpkin that just decided to grow. It rotted out and all the seeds sprouted up. So I'll have pumpkins in the fall. How cool is that? Just laying on the Georgia clay. Nothing done to them. Didn't even cover them up. Demon cat. She's following me around, getting in between my feet. This right here is a lovely rose. It's a very red rose. I just have it growing kind of like randomly throughout everything here. I've got some shrubs and stuff that are growing up through here. This tree right here, or shrub, is Rose of Sharon. I'll try to insert some pictures of this in between when I'm talking about this when I edit the video. These bloom in like pink, purple, champagne, and they're indigenous to Georgia. They're actually a hibiscus that's much hardier and cold tolerant than the ones you find in Florida. Although I do have those kind of hibiscus in my yard too, and they do pretty well here. They die all the way to the ground. So these are like salvia and little daisies and stuff that are drought tolerant. This is poison ivy. It grows everywhere. I'm not allergic to it, thank God. And then out here I have a fire pit, weeping willow, that behind the rose. This is a crepe myrtle, and I let them grow as wild as possible. You'll see them trained up where they festoon out of the top like feathers, but I like them when they bloom all over the tree, and I'll also try to find pictures of that too. They're beautiful. They look very well here. It smells fantastic here. This one smells like a rose, normal rose. The yellows smell a little bit more citrusy. The pinks are a little sweeter. This is honeysuckle. It grows everywhere, but you can actually eat the nectar out of the flowers. And I have a lot of bees and things in this yard. I try not to use pesticides as much as possible. In here I have a graceful little tea rose growing. I'll show that to you. Beautiful. I groomed this one up. I'll show you how to actually trim a rose bush at the end of the video. This is Scopadon. This is a wild grape. You can make wine out of this. And if you see right here, here are the little grapes. And you can eat those. They have seeds in them, but the birds usually get them before I do. And of course, this is where I do some of my videos, in the yard. Yeah, there goes Nick. Off into the gnome garden. This plant right here that you'll see with the 5 leaves, that's actually Virginia creeper. It's very beautiful, and I let it fill in a lot of the woodland space. This is anemone. And, oh, I'm sorry, unanimous, not anemone. Unanimous. And this actually is variegated, very pretty against the other foliage. And you got to use foliage in contrast with other foliage in shade areas. This is a dogwood, actually kind of going up. They bloom early spring, quite lovely. Forsythia. Forsythia blooms yellow flowers. I've had pictures of it. I'll interject that too. This is wisteria. This is another different type of unanimous. Now we're going into the gnome garden, and there's my yard from the back. And I have a little path. I let the kids run around back here. I cut it because there are copperhead snakes and black widow spiders and rattlesnakes and stuff potentially around here. Then I have these little lanterns around, so we can walk on the path with it. And then, over here, I have blackberries growing everywhere. This is a giant azalea that already bloomed. It's doing very well. It actually sprawled all the way over there. It was really nice this year. Quite pretty. Since I last took the video, the hydrangeas have bloomed. Look how pretty that is. And I never have to water this stuff. That's the beauty of it. Try to make it steady where you can kind of see it. I'll close up on this. Very pleasant. And then I've got the little lanterns in here. And then right across from the path, I have another thing of hydrangeas. And these are the ones I'm going to do from cuttings. I accidentally hit them. Not quite nice. How pretty is that? Hard to get blue anywhere in the yard. Blue flowers are a little harder to find. As I was saying, I've got all these trees out here. These are Georgia pines. And then magnolias. Got some maples. Redbud. There's a lot out here for the birds to eat. It's just really an escape out here. That's kind of what you want. I'm working with nature though. I decided not to try to create something out of nothing. I decided to go with what I already had and work around it, which has a really lush, wonderful, and very peaceful sort of zen. Oh, they found me. Hello. Here comes the cat. They run around in a pack together. I don't know where the kitten is. She's probably pulling up the rear. And then I just have like these quirky little things I throw out here, like butterflies and stuff. I'm in the city, more or less, and I feel like I'm way out in the country. It's fantastic. Oh, seeing the animals enjoy it. I'm gonna have to check for ticks when I get done here. I got a little cedar going here. I've got cedars in the front yard too. Little crazy stuff that I'd never have out in my yard, but that I can get away with back here in the gnome garden. So sassy. You hear all those birds? It's just wonderful. Fantastisch. Blackberries. We're just about a week later. We get back down there where you can see them. And they'll turn black in a couple of days. Blackberries. Tart, but tasty. Gnomes. I'm definitely going to have to plant more of these from starts. Gnome number 2. He's got a little bird in his hand. Gnome number 3. Fire pit, we can pull up chairs. Make some s'mores or whatever. Wood to be chopped. Lavender, getting ready to bloom. This is very hard to grow in Georgia, but I got it from a friend. She had it growing in a pot, put it in here. It's growing like weeds. I always say, your home is my nursery. These are roses that I started from a clipping a couple of years ago. I've moved them around the yard several times. Look at that. These are a tea rose though, more or less. And tea roses tend to be a little more disease prone, a little harder to maintain. So I have some of them, but I don't keep them a lot. I like the shrub roses. And the knockout variety that have more impact and are less high maintenance. And this is a lilac. It hasn't bloomed yet. It hasn't gotten big enough. But my brother-in-law grew it in his yard. And it's making it here in Georgia. Lilacs don't do very well in this humid climate. So it's been born and raised here. A little spot to sit and hang out while you're doing laundry. And then I also have, in between the roses, I have rosemary and basil and stuff growing in that clump right there behind the umbrella. And then right here by the door, I've got a weed. But I also have a pretty big rosemary bush. Now in the front bed, I have this. This is sweet pea. And then this is a fern that grows in a tree here. It's called mimosa. Mimosa? Formosa? Formosa. Formosa, I think means beautiful. Formosa. Anyway, it has these little pom-poms on it that are purple. I mean, not purple, they're peach colored, and they smell like peaches. It's fantastic. Dogwoods, evergreen shrubs, lots of ivy, more than I could care to do. Plants I almost killed in the winter. I had them inside, they were doing fine. I brought them outside. We had a cold snap, it killed them back, but they're growing. These are the sweet pea that are starting to grow out. I have these in the front yard. Looking kind of lovely. Oh, cat. Cat fight. Cat fight. It's a cat standoff. They're vying for my affection. This is a camellia. It's white. A little dogwood tree that I'm growing. This is camellia, so it blooms in the winter. The thing behind it is a crepe myrtle. It blooms in the summer. And if you look up here behind it, I'm going to step back just a little bit. You might be able to see that. I can't tell because there's a glare in my eyes. This is a mulberry bush, and it's growing from out of my other mulberry bush. So, there you go. mulberry tree. Then I have like textures and stuff. It's kind of wild. Then these are roses that I planted. They're doing quite lovely. It's a big bush, but it's getting covered up by stuff. I've decided not to go in and clear it out because it's doing quite well for itself and I like the effect. And then these are little roses with red throats that are quite lovely. Another camellia. This thing is like 10 feet tall now. When I first got here, it was like a little shrub. My brother had planted it. You have just arborvitaes occasionally here and there to add a little texture. And this is a mulberry tree from the West Indies that a neighbor gave me. She's from down in the West Indies, and she brought one back with her. It's got the loveliest leaves on it. I'm going to try a close up on that. These are what the leaves on it look like. I mean, it's just such a lovely foliage on this plant. Sways in the wind, feeds the birds. This is a Cuba, and a Cuba grows into nice big bushes in Georgia, and they just have really pretty variegated leaves. I mean, look at that, all spotted. It's lovely interdispersed with all the other foliage and wild growing stuff. More of the little red roses with white throats, and then these and this bush are going to bloom in May, and they have little yellow pom-poms all over them. It's quite lovely. So the yard blooms during different seasons. And of course, more honeysuckle. These are roses that are crossbred. As you can tell, they are doing all kinds of interesting stuff. I cut them from a cutting, and I have one on the mailbox that's the same way as well. And then I have another bush in here that's kind of like yellow flowers, other than the honeysuckle. And then more crepe myrtles in the front of the house. A red bud that blooms in early spring, has purple on it. Giant trees, blue spruce, oak, and a hickory, dogwood. And here I have another hybrid rose. I made this rose from a cutting. It's quite lovely. And it is having sex with this rose right here. As you can tell, it's changing the color of both of them. And as you look up, you'll see that it will radiate from like colors of like pink to like deeper red. And then occasionally I'll have a pink one on here, and then these have that little blush on the edge of them that is from the crossbreeding, and they kind of took on a peach cast when in reality they were more this color. And then Euonymus, more, come here, Buford, more crepe myrtle, and then this is Lornicopia with a crepe myrtle behind it. The Lornicopia grows a little pink on it during the early spring. It's quite lovely, and then the rest of the year it's got this quite variegated, beautiful leaf. Then running up the front, I have a line of Lornicopia or monkey grass that blooms in the late summer. It's quite lovely. It's little purple blooms, very nice, lavender colored. These are not knockout roses. These are encore azaleas. They bloom in the shade and they bloom all year round. And I have several of those around the front of the yard. That's of course another hydrangea. And in here, me and my neighbor work in conjunction with each other. So we try to weed this out, but it grows a little wild. And in here, these are all gardenias. They're little dwarf gardenias, so they don't grow real tall. This is actually a shrub, but it looks like a fern. That's why I like it. It's a textural plant. Birds planting Rose of Sharon everywhere. I have to dig those up and move them somewhere else. And then these are the actual hibiscus right here. And then behind it is pulkweed, which has these really gorgeous purple berries on it. It's a funky looking plant. It's like considered a specimen plant in other parts of the country. And you can actually eat this. Elvis has the song Polk Salad Annie. That's what it's about. And then lots of hostas in the shade next to hydrangea. And then these are the encore azaleas. And encore azaleas bloom 3 or 4 times a year. I'll interdisperse a picture of that. But yeah, they're a repeat bloomer all through the summer. And these are in shade and they still bloom. Very nice. And then this is a Japanese rose. It's got some honeysuckle growing in it. And I have pictures that I'll try to interject in here. But that's what the little rose is. But it covers the whole bush. It's quite lovely. And then my neighbor has bushes, Rose of Sharon's, you know, stuff like that. And Nick cleaning up. And these are red sisters. They're cordyline. So I take them inside during the winter. And I accidentally put them outside a little too early and they got frosted slightly. But they're coming back. I'll show you some pictures of that. What this looks like when I get it planted. I'm going to put caladiums in here with them. Lovely. And this is my mowing path, so I can get from the backyard to the front yard. And it's got Lornicopia and witch's broom and all kinds of interesting plants that were flowering white just a few weeks ago. A little Akuba. Oh, there's the black cat. Hello, Henderson. And then this is Akebia quinata. I have white and I have purple. This one blooms purple first thing in the spring. Grows about 30 feet a year. Seed pods. Very, very cool. These are Leland cypresses that I planted to create a barrier between me and the neighbor's yard, just for some privacy. And this is an Italian basil. I didn't plant it intentionally, it was carried by the birds here. And it grows all over the yard. It's just pretty. I let it grow all the way up. It grows about 2 feet tall. Gardenias! They smell really wonderful. Let's close up on this so you can see what they look like. Do very well in the south. Look at the lavender. I'm going to zero in. Bees. Yes, they're all over this. Oh my God, I just caught a whiff of that lavender in the sun. It just smells amazing. Amazing. So it was raining yesterday, and I had to redo my room because Jacob, my roommate, has moved out with his girlfriend. He's the kid in the Drain Key video, a graduate of Lacordine Blue, you know, very hardworking, and he's finally getting out on his own, which is fantastic. Anyway, so I had to redo his room. So this is what I was doing while it rained, and in just a second I'm going to show you a way to propagate, you know, plants, roses, and everything else in your yard from cuttings. Yeah, so just give me an idea what you think of this room. I was kind of like having a creative block. And I would work with what was already here color-wise, you know, and the things that I already had from before. And this is the view from the room. There you go. See? You can see the whole garden. It's the best view in the house. I'm also incubating eggs for my neighbor, because we have an urban farm going on between the two of us. She more than me. I'm going to do a video on it soon. Weeping willow. Looking schmexy. And then these are the carpet roses I planted on the edge over here. And as you can see, when you go into the gnome garden, like different things bloom different times of the year. And these are actually in shade, and they're called a carpet rose, but they can take like 4 hours of indirect sunlight, or less than that. And these are like pretty much in full shade along with the other one on the other side. But they're just so pretty. You look out into the yard, you get this little shock of color. So on the plant, you have, on the roses, a 7-leaf bud, a 5-leaf bud, and a 3-leaf bud. The 3-leaf bud is where the rose comes from, where it flowers from. And then the 5-leaf bud, or the next 7-leaf bud, is where you can cut the rose. And it will put out another new bloom. So what you want to do is you want to find your spot towards your nearest outward-facing bud, because that keeps all of the light into the center of the plant and prevents disease. And then you want to cut it at a 45-degree angle right above the bud, and facing towards the bud at an angle, so that water will drain off of it away from the bud, and then that prevents it from getting fungus. Now, if you were going to take this and start this, I'm going to show this to you real quick. What you do is you take the leaves off of this. Ow. I'm pretty tough though. Take the leaves off of this. You can cut your thorns away just for your own protection. And what you want to do is you want to go to a bud. You can see that's a bud right there. And you want to take the edge of the tool and scrape just kind of gently away from the bud and around the bud. You can do it like that. You can do this with a knife or with your pruners. What that's doing is that is exposing the interior of the rootstock or the rose stock, so that it will react to the plant hormone. So now that you've scraped the bud, what you want to do to it is you want to take a pot of soil. It can be small like this, or you can put several in a large bunch. And then you have rooting hormone. And this is what I found at Home Depot. It's not always the one that I use, but you see how it says plant hormones in there? The plant hormones are what are going to cause the leaf or the bud to think that it is now a root, and it will actually reverse the function of this bud and become a root. So this you're supposed to mix like, to the gallon of water. It has instructions on the back of it. Sometimes I'll just take the cap and I'll pour it on there, and then I just deluge it with water, which is what I do more often than not. But you want to take this, you want to dip it in the plant hormone, or dilute it into water, according to the instructions. I'm going to dip it and get it up to the bud, which I've coated the bud. I'm going to come back and, deadhead all this off. But yeah, just put it down in the soil, deluge this with water, or make the mix and water it with the mix, and then you put this in the shade. And the reason why you put it in the shade is it is not going to dehydrate if you put it in the shade. So I always put them like near a tree or something like that. Leave it all year long, leave it until the next spring. And by the next spring, if it's made it, you'll have another rose bush. And this is a yellow rose, so I want more of those, so it's going to be quite lovely. You have I figure about a 75% success rate with cuttings. So when you're doing a cutting of anything, do multiples, stick them off to the side, let them weather. In this climate in Georgia, you can let them overwinter. It does get 30 degrees, sometimes to freezing, but the plants just appreciate it more, and then they put out their roots, and then they are more likely to survive into the extremes of summer and everything else. But yeah, put it in the shade. Leave it alone, forget about it. Come back next year and have you a plant, put it in the ground, or wait another year. Sometimes I'll wait up to 2 years on a plant, just to give it plenty of time to, be ready to go, and then I'll find a spot where I want it and put it out in the yard. And I've been playing in the poison ivy with the weed eater, so I'm going to go take a bath. Get all that off my skin. I'm not highly allergic, but my brother just got into it last week, and his face swole, and he got it all over his arms, and his hands were puffy. They had to put him on steroids to get rid of it. And real quickly before I leave you, what I wanted to tell you is, you would think that I am out grooming this yard all the time. And the truth is, I don't baby anything. I buy plants that are good for the area that I live in, or I get plants from other people from their yard. Things that have survived. But I don't baby the plants, I don't groom them all the time, I don't fertilize them all the time, I work all the time. So when I'm off, I want to enjoy it. And that's the secret to this yard, is that all of the plants that you'll hear me mention, and if I do other videos, I'll show you other different plants that I have in the yard, because it's too overwhelming to do it all at one time. But they all survive on their own. I don't water them. I don't have a watering system in my yard. They all do quite well on their own. And that's the secret to a great garden, is not to have to spend your whole life taking care of it, you know. So I go out and I groom things up in the fall and sometimes in the spring. And I spend about a day, maybe 2 days doing that. And the rest of the year, all I do is mow around them and occasionally, you know, cut something off if it dies, you know. And that's it. Enjoy it, enjoy it, enjoy it, enjoy it. These are supposed to hold candles, but a wren made a nest in there. America.